So I'm going to give a little bit of a backstory of how this actually came to exist, this particular experience that we're having this evening. It's a 5-hour day, so get ready for us, right? With that said, you know, things don't just happen out of the blue. We usually have an event that is organic, and then other people feel it, see it, want to have it, and then we say, okay, let's not so much go for it again, because everything is different every time it shows up. So last year we had what was called the After Dark Day Party. So After Dark was a story or a conversation by a brother named Noel Henkin. He was part of the Best of Friends, a group of guys who put together, you know, quite an experience for black people partying at the time in Manhattan. There were really no spaces. There were really no ways for black folk to come together and really feel safe in the spaces that they were in. You know, they were considered mid-management. And so people wanted to party after work, especially in the 70s. That was a big thing to just unwind before you went home. So these guys decided to put something together that became quite extraordinary in a lot of ways. And it really sparked a new way to engage, not just the party portion of what happens, but to make a business out of it. So Noel Henkin came and had a conversation. There was a couple of guys that showed up to support him. And in doing so, the language around the business of partying was really a spark, because it really, at that point, was not just people coming and having a great time, but how to monetize it, how to brand it, how to own it. And so that dialogue showed up with understanding that these guys would come together, be given a space, and maybe there was some conversation about having the bar. That means how whatever people spent at the bar was going to come in their pocket, or they'll take the door. So whatever the language was, it was definitely around the business and the economics of the party. And that was new for us. So when these guys built on that, they, you know, had a conversation. Well, Noel had a conversation that day about, you know, everybody had a very specific role that they played in that group. And their role was to really make sure people not just had a great time, but people spent money. So I remember what stuck out for me is him talking about the DJ would play specific songs to get people riled up, ready to party, dance, dance, dance. And of course, he'd slow down the moment, and they'd become thirsty. And they'd make their way to the bar. So that's how they generated how money was spent. And there are going to be some folks that are going to have a conversation around promoting and party. So I'm thankful that the panelists that are here today, they'll be able to expound on this a lot further than myself. That one stuck out to me. So it also stuck out to me that there was a relationship that was building with all of these guys in this particular group. From security to the DJ to, you know, who's at the door, and the safety that people felt at the time. So Noel, he talked about that, about people feeling safe to go out. Women especially, you know, ensuring that men were going to behave a way that women didn't mind going out by themselves or with friends, knowing that they were not going to be, you know, assaulted in some way or talked to a certain way. So it was very serious to them. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, because that was the focus of last year's conversation. And of course, we had a little party behind it. We were fortunate that day when Noel came to speak that there were quite a few of his colleagues that came. They wanted to sit down and just share their narrative and their perspective. They also talked about how they became so popular, people followed them wherever they were, that they became a brand. And in doing so, they had travel agencies that wanted to, you know, use them to see if their people would, you know, follow through and go through travel, because it's like they vetted anything that came through. So anything that came through them, people felt safe because of what they had already built in the party space. So, you know, without me speaking too much about one of the artists and one of the authors that's coming on the stage to have a conversation about what he and his brother did in terms of taking that formula and then taking it to the next level, and another audience that was waiting, and we didn't know they were waiting too, but he's going to talk a little bit about that. We also have definitely an understanding on how house music and disco are a fused space. They are very connected, and people don't always know the history of how one engaged the other, and how, because of course, it became a full-fledged space of house music. So we do have somebody who is going to speak a little bit about the growing and the becoming of house music and how the music made its way through different genres and different pathways for that. And we definitely, you know, without the, who carries it on? Like, why would you go to a party? What motivates, especially as crowds are getting different generations at this point, what generations go to what party and for what reason? So we definitely have someone who's going to speak about party promoting, and not just the party promoting in general, but what they have observed over the years and what makes an older generation come out. For what reason do they come out, and in what way do they set the tone for people to come and say, hey, I'll still party. I still want to party. I want to be with these groups of people that I partied with 20 years ago. So that is a conversation that we're here tonight, and so I'm excited because this is an evening of a little bit of everything. So feel free, enjoy. We also, before I introduce the moderator who's going to really just kind of help guide some of that conversation, I'll tell you a little bit about her too. We try to make sure that this space is not just come in, have a seat, hear a band. I mean, we've done that for a long time, but we're trying to move in another direction so that when you're here, that what engages you to the point where you want to do something beyond just sitting here today. What are next steps? It could be something as simply supporting the food trucks that are out in front of the building. So we do have 2 food trucks that are here. Some of you know them because they've been here for coming to this community for years, and some are new. But we definitely want people to, you know, not to just think the library, sit down, watch the show, get out the door. So we have a fuller experience ahead of you for this evening. So I didn't plan on talking this much. So the moderator, I want to mention just a thing or two about her and how she was chosen. So when I go to events, I'm always looking like, well, how does that connect to us? And who is that person? And where are they from? Are they homegrown from Roosevelt? Okay, but I'm watching them in another space. So this particular young lady, she was in a film that I watched that was produced and created by other Roosevelt natives. And in this particular movie, she played like a hip-hop host. And she was so natural at it, right? She was just, you know, there was a scene where the young lady in the movie was moving from gospel to hip-hop and, you know, R&B and all these other flavors of sound, and how it was impacting her and her choices, and how, you know, she had to kind of get back to her roots because it was taking her down another path. Well, anyway, that's the movie. But watching this young lady in the space of having this interview with her on her radio show, it felt so authentic. Like, like in that moment, I was watching a radio show. So even though I went and spoke to most, you know, people after the performance, after the film showing, I went to this particular young lady and I said, you know, we have an event coming up and I feel like you would do great as a host for our annual Women's Tea. We would love for you to come and please consider. Well, it turns out that she is an MC, a hip-hop MC for Nassau Community College. So the reason why she felt so authentic is because she's actually in that capacity. So she's, you know, she's going to be the one having a little more of a conversation, guiding the 3 panelists that are having that discussion. So I got to get out the way because this is a 1-hour experience, and we want to make the best of it. So. So, oh boy, I'm looking at another one. So I gave an idea of who the other folks were who were coming up. And there is the house head. You know, that people have been following house music all over this country. It's like roller skating. I didn't know there was a underground roller skating world. It's serious, y'all. And house music has that same following and that same gifting and that same calling. So people travel all over this country to go hear this house music. And it's an experience that it's changing, it's life-changing as well. So with that said, I have had the opportunity to know this brother. Did I say young? Oh yeah, he's a young brother too. Known him for a long time. And his name is Mark. We call him Blake the Snake. He has been in this space DJing for many years. You guys probably already know him. So he's one of the panel conversationalists tonight. And he, of course, will be our house head resident DJ later this evening. So if we don't get you one way, we're going to get you the other. So without further ado, again, my name is Joy Rankin. I'm the director here at the Roosevelt Public Library, and Gina Marcus will take it from here. Thank you, Gina. And let's call you guys up. Mark, come on in. You can take a seat right there next to your turntable. Harold, where are you at? Harold Dow, please come on. Author, thank you, author of 50 Years Reflection of Disco, so thank you. He's going to come up. K-Mal, promoter, thank you. Please come up, and you guys can take a seat, and we'll get started.
All right, Roosevelt Public Library. How everyone doing today? Everyone doing good this evening? All right, while everyone's coming up, I'm going to give you a little history of me. I love Joy so much. She's such a wonderful, wonderful person, just great positive energy. So she did meet me at a movie premiere. It's called He's All I Need. Big shout out to Daryl Carter. He's another Roosevelt native. I went to high school out here. I'm class of '05. I do radio, 103.9 FM that was located in Madison Square Garden before it shut down, 93.5 before it was sold. And right now I'm on 90.3 WHPC with Nassau Community College. So I've been doing this for about 8-9 years, and I really enjoy it. So it's all about you guys tonight, Roosevelt Public Library, disco, and house. Let's get this going, all right? We need more mics. We gonna share? All right. Got you. Okay. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, can we give a welcome to Arthur Harold Dow? All right, he got the book out right now, The Dow Twins Legacy. Make sure you purchase that 2 days before you leave, actually. That would be really nice. Like you said, we have K-Mel, Mark, Blake the Snake on stage, and I'm your girl, Gina. So we're going to get this going. It's the 50 years of disco reflection. Like I said, once again, Roosevelt Public Library presents Disco and House Music Explosion. Can I get a round of applause? All right, yeah, all right. All right, so Mr. Harold Dow, welcome. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mother.
All right, so we got the Dow Twins Legacy, 50 years of disco reflection. All right, no, thank you, Joy. Okay. So what's the personal qualities, business acumen, and ethics that you attribute to your perfect record? And basically, I'm referring to the access to so many like high-profile venues.
Well, I'll start off by saying my mother and father, we came into this world as twins. And being a twin, you were very popular in the black community because there was very few black identical twins. So we started with that. We had a very strong mother that wanted us to go to certain schools, and we started out at St. Catherine's in Queens, and went to, instead of going to Andrew Jackson that we wanted to go to for high school, we went to Brooklyn, Christ the King, which was very boring. But, you know, and it didn't allow us to be socialized. And when we left there, we went to St. John's. And in the book, you'll see that my father had passed away a year before. And with that, my mother's mother passed away 6 months after. And we didn't want to leave my mother in the house by herself. So we decided instead of going to Howard University, we went to St. John's as a local school. And, you know, blessings, because we went there.
That was a big decision.
Yes, it was, you know, and it wasn't taken lightly, but, you know, we love Mom, you know, so, but unbeknownst to us, things work out a different way, you know, that you scheduled. we went to St. John's along with 67 other black students, and they became our family. They socialized us, and we became popular only because, again, we like to travel. We always were moving around. We bought a car. Next thing, we were all over the place, and we worked in the student union area of St. John's, so we met a lot of people. And then we decided to go to different campuses. And that's what really got us moving along in this, because we became the college promoters. Okay. And with that, we decided to give a party. Of course, it was a success. And then after that, we decided to do something that wasn't being done for people of color. And that was, white kids always had a chance to go to Disneyland and stuff on Easter vacations and stuff like that, and the different presidents' birthdays. We decided to give a party the Sunday before the holiday, and that was an instant success. We went from Rochdale Village to Pippin's to the Iron Horse in the city, all these Manhattan locations. And we were lucky that we met a gentleman named Mark Glazier, and he put us in touch, a Jewish guy. Yeah, remember Mark, right? And he took to us, because he was doing Jewish singles, and we gave him an opportunity to do black singles. And he knew everybody. And you know who runs the city, who is running all these different locations, are the Jews. And any place we wanted to go, because our record was so clean, everywhere we went, it was a success. You know, we had the stylish women, we had the gentlemen that were wearing jackets because we required jackets to be worn, because that eliminated fights. Mm-hmm. You know, gentlemen walk in with a jacket, they're going to they act completely different. Okay. You bump into them, oh, excuse me, oh. Yeah.
It was more of a gentleman look.
Exactly, and that eliminated any problems. And, you know, with that, that's how we really started out.
Was it easily not to be judged walking in as a gentleman compared to walking in with the hip-hop attire?
Well, you have to understand, hip-hop wasn't around when we came out.
All right.
We were starting 71, 75. We opened Othello's in 75. We did that for 13 years. Then we did pop-up events, including the Intrepid and the South Street Seaport. Mm-hmm. And it's Intrepid we did, like I was telling Kamel, for 25 years, every year.
All right.
So hip-hop wasn't even a thought at that point.
Okay, Lord, listen, I'm sorry. It's the 87 baby in me that's coming out over here. No, but definitely, you know, it's nothing like mama love. You know, I think we all in here can say that we'll do anything for our parents, whether it's our mother or our father, you know. And like I said, making that big sacrifice to not go to Howard, to go to St. John's, you know, did you feel like you was judged for going to a, like, not lower grade university, but?
No, at that point, everybody, unfortunately, it was a goal of every young person back in to go to college.
Just to go to college.
Just to go to college. We didn't care where you went, and that became our market. Mm-hmm. All the college. I mean, we drove one time down to Tennessee State.
Sheesh.
You know, in our little Volkswagen. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, we traveled the East Coast. And we went to Sarah Lawrence. We went to all the colleges up to Springfield College, where my best friend was going. And then we would drive down to Howard University and blow out our coils in our little Volkswagen because we were going too fast. But
to bring it up to the 2000s, little, do you feel like the college aspect, how you're viewing it, is still viewed that way?
Unfortunately, not. You know, with the hip hop and everything.
Well, thanks. No.
You know, well, the biggest problem you have is that there are no more clubs. There's no more discos in New York, white, black, or otherwise. Right. So there's no more facilities for you to even try to have an event at. Because when we came up, New York was doing very poorly. 71 to 75, there was no business in New York City. We were a ghost town. So all the restaurants that were trying to hang on allowed us to come in and do parties.
Okay.
And as Joy was talking about the bar guarantees and stuff like that, they took the bar, we took the door, and then we helped keep them alive.
But is it like nowadays? I feel like with the up and coming artists and with the celebrities, like everyone's like forced to run to the bar, and they are persuading the crowd to go to the bar more compared to actually being on the dance floor and having a fun. And I guess that's the difference between
That's
the
it.
disco
Yes.
and the.
Because with the disco, you were tired and you needed to get a drink, or you met somebody you want to get them
wanna
a
keep it
drink.
going, keep stay on the floor.
Exactly. But because you don't have that disco going on now, there was a method to do disco, because in the nightclubs, you would have your DJ take the music up and then bring it down and then bring it back up. The breaks would be, you might play a little salsa, you may play a little, reggae, or even, unbeknownst to a lot of young people today, a slow record.
That's what I'm. No, you're right. All right, I'm gonna give them. Go ahead, keep going.
So that's the plus about us, in the 70s and 80s. But today, the problem is, you guys, you're doing lounges. That's not a party. No. You don't. But relax, you're young. What the hell are you talking about? You're young already. Get out there and mix and mingle and get off the cell phone. How are you going to meet somebody on a cell phone when we were able to go out and dance with somebody? We got the vibe from the person as we looked them in the face, and you said, "Oh, I like you, young lady."
Well, that don't happen too much, Mr. Dow. I'm gonna say that. Okay? I don't know, like it was too much going on with sweating. I'm gonna make sure my hair's right. I don't want to step on my shoes.
No, that's not how it went. Let these my generation speak up over here. Come on, generation. Let them know how much fun you had. That's right. Absolutely. We weren't sweating.
From DJing back in the days, and I started in '75, and back then we didn't necessarily have genres, although you have genres. We had like black clubs and white clubs. That's kind of what it was. Although when I DJ'd, I played everything. I played in Cherries in Glen Cove, and that was an Italian club, and so I played everything in both clubs. But a big difference is when we went out, that was our outlet. That was our release. So we come out and dance, and we dance together, and we had different dances. So in the present generation, going out is different. So when people going out, they're going to network, they're going to brand, they're doing meetups and things like that. So dancing is a side thing of it. And the lounge is appropriate because usually even in the big clubs, they don't come to the dance floor and dance. They just dance where they're at. So like the big dance floor and the big sound system is not a necessity because that's, the dancing is a side thing. It's not a main thing. Whereas when you had in the 70s and even 80s to 90s, even in the dress-up clubs, like Leviticus, they still dance. You still get it in. And then you had the no dress code clubs where the dancers but that was a big part. You meet the ladies, you meet the guys, and good music. But dancing was the thing, and hearing good music.
Exactly. But we had clubs that handled 400 people. That's the norm. Justine's, Leviticus, that's 400 or 500 people. Today, the lounges have about 100 people in them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're fighting off the fire code. And this way, the Intrepid handled 2,500 people with one security person. One.
garage was, I think the
They
garage was
wouldn't, they
5,000.
wouldn't rent it to you unless they had about 100. Are you kidding me?
But for the DJ aspect of it, do you feel like it's the DJ for now while people on their phones and doing TikToks and being on Instagram compared to being on the
No, it's not the DJ's fault. That's the that's the culture, and not just for young people. Everyone, any restaurant you go to, more people on their phone than engaging. So that's just how I was going to say evolved, but I don't necessarily know that that's appropriate. That's how we've become. But as a DJ, and me, myself, and other DJs, I think we can take more personal responsibility. Like, even though I know that's the culture, I DJ with my daughter sometimes in her events, and they dance, and they do a little something. But I take it on me personally, like, they're going to come down here and dance. I'm going to find a way to weave within their comfort zone and get them to dance. And then I'm going to get them to dance with what they never even thought they were going to dance to or never heard it. And a thing to remember back then, the DJs broke the record. And we reported to the radio station, and the radio stations played according to what we said, and the people that gave them some money to play on the side. But when, like, for us, when it was on the radio for a month, then that was an old record for us because we'd been playing it for 2 months already. So I think when it becomes important for the DJs, like, I'm going to get them going and I'm going to bring them there and they take it on, then it'll start happening.
This is why Frankie Crocker, Niles Rogers, they were all at our clubs. They were listening too because they were making the music. And they used the nightclubs, Leviticus, Justine's, and all other places to get their groove on and to find out what people really wanted. And that's why disco was so popular, because if Frankie played it, if you had your chance for Frankie Crocker to play your record on BLS, and if he really liked it, what would Frankie do? For you young people that don't remember, Frankie would play it how many times?
Yeah.
You remember Frankie's slogan, right? If Frankie's not on your radio isn't on.
But, this is why this generation, unfortunately, has missed that whole part of having fun. And we are, the folks that are here that know about that, they understand it because they met their husbands, they met their best friends there, and they had something to hang out with.
They was actually talking.
Yes, and they, in the book I say one thing. It was very important for us to get our education. Everybody wanted to go to college when we were coming up. Now, I'm 73 years old, and once I got my education, I got my job. And when I got my job in 71, 72, I was like, wow, now we wanted to socialize. Where did we go? We went to the after-work parties. You guys don't even know anything about after-work parties because as soon as 5 o'clock came, we were at the Martinique. We were at all these after-work situations that started right about now. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now, if you wanted the salsa, you would go to a Tavern on the Green on a Monday night. You wanted to hang out with the elite at La Cuckoo on Tuesday. It was every night had a different theme. Exactly. And this is what made it such a big deal. When you hear PBS talking about the gays made disco, that's so full of crap. Because we discoed through the 70s, 80s, 90s. And I'm telling you, if I told people today I'm giving a party, if I ever said, I promised myself I wasn't going to ever do a party again. And let me tell you, it would be packed, and K-Mel knows, right?
The promoter. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, actually, when I came along in 2000. But prior to 2000, I was partying. So I've been to some of those places that he was mentioning, like La Martinique, Justin's, Boom Bomber Cow. We talk in the 70s. That's when you were really rolling. But I wasn't involved. I had no knowledge of promoting and stuff like that. I was just going out to have a nice time, me and the fellas. Okay, but we enjoyed your parties, though. We definitely enjoyed your parties.
I'm sorry, darling. You had groups, promotional groups, that were heavy male and some that were heavy female. We were heavy female. So when we came to doing the Intrepid, we decided to do partnerships. And we did partnerships with Harold Stansel, with Bob Bell, and these are guys that handled a lot of women. I mean, a lot of men, I'm sorry. They were ball players and stuff like that, because we had all the beautiful women of Queens and Long Island. They were just the appetizer. And then we came into New York. You had Harlem, you had New Jersey, but we carried a lot of women. We were strong on the female side.
So, as a party promoter, was it hard to bring that crowd together with the females and the ladies? Because nowadays, when I go to my hip hop parties, sometimes it just be either a lot of male, what you call a sausages, and then you have a lot of the females. So it's like it's really no balance. I gotta pick one out.
Well, again, as I was saying earlier, prior to what we're talking about right now, I was complimenting him as a promoter, great promoter, awesome guy. You and your brother, okay? And I gotta be honest, you guys inspired me. Because when I did come on the set in 2000, I was attending your events at Copacabana, the Intrepid, and different other venues around Manhattan. But when I got there, I already had a desire to be a promoter. I was already like in my mind, I'm gonna do some parties. And I think that my first inspiration was at Roseland with Phyllis Hernandez party. And then once I saw that, I caught the bug. Well, I already knew that I had a personality that gave me the opportunity to connect with people. I knew that about myself. And so when I decided to do parties and become a promoter, what I did was I went around to your parties and other people's parties, and during that time, we didn't have cell phones and stuff like that. So I used to have a composition book and a pen, and I was getting phone numbers and emails and addresses. And I was, when I do decide to promote my party, I would print like maybe 500 flyers, and I would have my composition book. And I had a hookup with somebody that worked in the post office that gave me a good deal on, gave me a good deal on postal envelopes that were already had the stamp on them. So that's how I started. I started sending people flyers through the mail. And that's how I promoted myself, and that's how I promoted my event. Now, my brand is Checkmate Entertainment. Okay, when I started out with a young lady and two guys who I brought in the fold because I thought and felt that I needed the support, that I couldn't do it by myself, all right? So I brought a lady and two gentlemen in, and I named us our group Three Gents and a Lady Production. And we had a lot of success. That, when I tell you we had success, we did our first party in Brooklyn and at the Masonic Temple. in Brooklyn, the very first party in 2000. And I think we printed like maybe 400 tickets. And when I tell you, that that night right there, let me tell you something, that night right there, so many people showed up and attended that event. There was 150 people outside that had tickets and couldn't get in because we was taking the money before the tickets. Like, we didn't prioritize the tickets. We were taking both the tickets and the money, the tickets and the money. And then the people that ran that facility, a gentleman there, he kept staring at me. And I got a little nervous, right, as I walked over to him, right? And I said, is everything all right? Because he was supervising the place. I said, is everything all right? He looked at me. He said, who are you? And I looked at him. I said, listen. He said, who are you? I said, I'm K-Mel. He said, in all seriousness, he said, I've been in this building 25 years, and it ain't never had this many people in here. I'm going to have to shut you down. And I looked at him, right? Listen. And I looked at him, and I said, what do you mean? This is my first party. I said, what do you mean, shut me down? He said, this is a fire hazard. He said, this is a fire hazard. So now I'm nervous, and it's like maybe 11:45, almost 12, and people are steady coming in. So I'm go in my pocket, and I count off $500. I said, yo, can you just take this and let the party go on? He said, it ain't even about the money. He said, this is a fire hazard. So I was like, oh, my God, I'm stuck. So then I said to him, I said, okay, I thought real quickly. I said, all right, look, can we do a final, what we call that, final exit, all exits are final. Right, once you go out, it's a wrap. I said, and not only that, I said, I have like maybe 30, 40 people, maybe 50 people outside that have tickets. Can I let them in and refund them and let them back out? He said, I'll do that for you. So we created a line with some barriers for the people that had tickets that couldn't get in, and they done went and got their hair done, got their feet done. Yeah, they done did everything that it takes to prepare for a nice evening, but they weren't coming in. So, but what I did do and what I did feel good about was I was able to refund them, and I did that. And from that day forward, I knew that I needed a bigger location. Bro, that's someone that don't have no integrity.
Right, no integrity at all. But that's the difference between then and now. We had scruples. We're not going to, unfortunately, do what one of your young people did years ago and have a concert at City College, oversell it by 500 people, and cause a death. And he's still walking around today. No, I've done events in Vail and Aspen, Colorado, where you could do 2,500 people. We contracted for 2,500 people, black skiers, but the facility wasn't okayed for 2,500 by the time we got there.
Right.
So it was only 1,800. So out there, you parked and you got on a bus to get to, because it was on an island. And we only allowed 1,800 people to go to the island, and we took the other 600, 700 people and put them into another facility because we weren't going to have a problem. And this is the difference between, I call it an event planner and just a regular person giving a party. Because you have to know that you don't want to inconvenience your folks. You don't want to give them a problem like has happened in the past. And I remember back in the 90s when someone did that concert at City College, it caused us a lot of problems because the police were checking us hard because we were doing the big events. But, we were always practical. And it was about the safety of our folks. because
Yeah.
my mother and my aunt went to a lot of my events. We don't play. Oh no.
So let me piggyback on that. Absolutely. You know, that's the difference between men and mouse. You're absolutely correct in event planning. At that stage, like I said, coming out the gate, right, into this new world of putting events together where people can come out and have a nice time, dance, and, you know, the top DJs and things, yeah, things like that. Yeah. Right. Well, it's a method. It's a method. It's a method to the madness. Actually, it's
You know, K-Mel had a great reputation, and people. I mean, I would go to his parties every blue moon if I was not doing something else. But he had a steady crowd, and once you get a steady crowd and people believe in you, they believed in K-Mel. You know, he dealt with a little younger generation than I did because, as Joy was talking about Noel Hankin dealt with people 4 or 5 years older than me, but college folks. We dealt with the next generation right below, and they like to have fun. And that's why Justine's and most of our events were about a lot of fun. Nobody was profiling. You know, they partied their little keisters off. We had the best DJs and Pete DJ Jones way back when. You wouldn't know anything about that. But we had a young man. No, that's way before your time. You never even heard that name before. But one name you did know is our favorite DJ, who was Tommy Allen from Long Island.
Tommy Allen.
And Brooklyn.
Tommy Allen. That's
Tommy
right.
Allen was the man.
Right. Tommy Allen.
Tommy
was the man.
played for us for 30 years. And the difference between our events, people look forward to Johnny Allen and Tommy Allen
Tommy Allen.
coming
There
to.
was a Johnny Allen as well.
And Johnny Allen played for us too.
That's
you know.
right.
But Tommy was the master. He
I was able to get 20 years out of Tommy Allen. All right. He played at Tavern on the Green for me, the Supper Club, 47th Street, Copacabana. You know, I followed you. You was my model. This guy was my model. I got to be honest with y'all. You know, and you got another question, right? We want to stay on track. Okay. Well, actually, like I said, promoting requires understanding the culture, understanding what people is trying to get out of life after work, as he mentioned, after work. I had an after work club as well. I fell right into it because actually I had 2 of them, and I fell right into the after work party. But I didn't want to get locked into it because I love the big parties. Right. But go ahead.
That's the difference because we did an event just to go back to Tommy. Tommy was such a DJ, and you can appreciate that, Snake, because Tommy played for the Intrepid. He played for the Copacabana. But we used to do a place uptown on 145th in the park called TN. And it was a little supper club type of thing, and you danced afterwards for a couple of hundred people. And Tommy came to me and says, "Dow, how come you've never asked me to play a TN?" I says, "Tommy, that place is only 200 people. I pay you a lot of money. I can't afford you for that place." He says, "Harold, whatever you charge your DJs for that little place, that will be good enough for me." And that's when I knew that was a true gentleman. He just loved to play, similar to probably yourself, you know. And those are the type of people we worked with. And just to let everyone know, the DJ was the most important part of our business. You know, we only had the best because we had to provide the best. And that's the most important thing with our business.
Well, speaking about DJs, you're absolutely correct. when I first started doing parties at this place called Brooklyn Cafe. It was a restaurant with a club attached, and it held about maybe 500 people. Right, but when I went in there, after that experience that I had at the Masonic Temple, where the guy was threatening to shut me down, I knew from that point that I needed to have bigger space. So I went to Kevin Richardson, gentleman that owned that venue space, where Wendy Williams and all of them used to go and have Dons and Divas party. But it was very upscale place, very nice. So I went to Kevin, he was the owner, Kevin Richards, and I asked him if I can have a party at his place. And he looked at me, he said, who are you? And I told him who I was, and he said, have you done parties before? I said, yeah, Masonic Temple, I'm just coming out the gate. I said, but I can pull the people, I think it could be beneficial for the promoter and the owner. And he said, well, give it a try. But then he asked me, he said, do you have a DJ already? I said, yeah. He said, who's your DJ? So I told him who it was. He said, dump him. I said, how you gonna tell me dump my DJ? Wait, hold on. I says, how you gonna tell me to dump my DJ? How can you say that? Hold on. Think what he tell me. He says to me, he says, you can have your DJ if you want. He said, but if I was you, I would book Lance. Right, he said, I would book Lance. And I looked at him and I said, Lance, I didn't know Lance at the time. I said, Lance, who's that? He said, trust me, you won't regret it. And I booked Lance for that event. And from that point on, Lance played with me for the next 15, 16 years. Every party. Manhattan was on fire. We did all the hotels. We did parties in all the hotels. I did party at the International Lighthouse, which a lot of people weren't familiar with. It was on 59th Street between 3rd and Lex. Park and Lex, between Park and Lex. But this place was crazy, you know. And what we do with these parties, we incorporate people to enhance our parties, to give our parties the flavor and the energy, so we know people want to be there. That's why we use those people. Like I use the radio personalities. I used to, like Lenny Green from Kiss FM and Shayla. You know, I wouldn't Bugsy. I would bring these people in, you know, to give my party the flavor, because I knew that they weren't used to going to parties with those particular radio DJs. They would just hear them on the radio. But Dow, he could tell you about it, man. Go ahead, tell him about it.
Well, we were fortunate that we didn't use radio, because we had such a gathering of people from the college days that our folks grew with us. We didn't try to be everything to everyone. We had our own crowd, and I always say birds of a feather flock together. Right. We've had no problems, knock on wood, for 50 years. We've never had an incident, no trouble at any of our events. No, you can't. It's too late.
No,
it's too late. You can only read about my events in that book. But that was the type. That's why we kept. Back in the days when these other folks tried to stop us from doing events and start body searching our women, I said, that's it. The party's over. What? I said, no. This is a private party. This is not a radio party or anything else. This is a private party, so just treat this like this is one of your white friends doing a event at your facility. Because first of all, you're not searching my women, you're not searching my men. Because this is a private party, and I pay for that privilege. And I have the background of 50, at that point, 20 or 30 years of no problem events. So I'm not tolerating it, and if you don't want it, we'll cancel this event right away. And I was belligerent about that, because you're not touching my women when you can, especially big, I'll leave that alone.
I wanted to add, like, during that time, and the black club scene was getting better, quality clubs, and you had uptown and downtown. And I know Pete DJ Jones. That's the first time I heard Dance to the Drummer's Beat at Stony Brook.
Now, Pete was the first rapping DJ
Yeah.
because he would rap to the songs and will let you know what song was coming on.
Yeah.
And him and Becky would start singing.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in the Bronx, but then Long Island. So I would go to Nell Gwynn's, Barney Google's, the Boston Ballroom, and 371, and all of those. But during that same time, there was an underground scene in place, and I just got drawn to that because I like variety in music. So, you know, so yeah, even before the garage, you had the loft, and you had these underground clubs where you could spend the whole night hearing music you've never heard anywhere before. And some of this stuff was new stuff. Some of this stuff was old Afro beats from the 70s and 60s and war and funk and soul and all of that. And I was drawn to that, but still with the other stuff. So I played everything together. And when it was talking about the happy hour, so I didn't, you know, and I didn't know about that.
You weren't awake at that point. You were
No,
getting ready
no,
for that-
I didn't know
that
about it
late night
here.
stuff.
No, I found out about it in '79 when I lived in D.C. for a year. And I played at a club called Tiffany's and Foxtrot.
Foxtrot.
And I would come to DJ, and they would open at 5, and at 6 o'clock there was a line around the block. And I never seen these
People in suits and everything
oh
else.
my God, they had the Zoot suits and Sporty 40, and it was a different culture because I was.
You were late night.
I was still wearing stuff from Delancey Street, and and they had their own apartments and cars, and some people had houses, and these are people like in their early 20s, and you know, in government positions. So I saw a different culture, and I got introduced to some more music. I got introduced to funk, and that damn go-go, and and I brought that back with me, and. So I was.
Well, that rounded you out as a DJ because
Yeah.
to be doing the late night, we call the after hours
Hours,
stuff,
yeah.
you know, which is unfortunately people like myself couldn't stay awake for that side because once we closed up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I've only been to one after hour club and I was in the corner, out cold because it's freaking dark. There's no light in those places.
Yeah, and when you talked about the go up tempo and go down tempo, and I was playing, and I had a club in 1981, 1984 in Long Island called the Clubhouse. And I wanted the Clubhouse to be where we played everything and underground. And the problem I had DJing at clubs, because I didn't think about the owners or the revenue standpoint, I thought about everybody's dancing, nobody's at the bar, and the club owner would say, put on the slow
Put a
record.
slow record.
They not buying drinks. And I'm like, I got them where I want them. What are you talking about?
No.
So,
Because you had to cool the room off too. And that's one of the techniques the Best of Friends taught me. That was you can party hard, but you had to cool the room down. And you know, black people generate heat. You know, while they're partying hard, you got to bring the temperature of the room so the air conditioning could work. And that's when you play the slow music and the Latin music, and then you bring it back up.
well, when we had the Clubhouse, we didn't cool the room down. So we had dancers. We had people that went to the city on the weekend. They went to the garage, they went to the law, they went to Jersey, to Zanzibar, and they went to all of those. But during the week, on Long Island, in Uniondale, right across from the Catholic Church in the old Jewish community, we'd have 300, 400, 500 people in that club, and we opened up at 11, and we closed at 5, and people would go to work from there, and we played no slow records. The best I would do is stop the music and play me 1 or 2 reggaes, or I just stop the music, they give me an applause, and we get back with it. And I couldn't get DJs to play there.
And there was no bar sales in that place.
No, we didn't want alcohol. They go across the street to 7-Eleven, and we weren't like an underground, so we didn't want alcohol, but we made what we called Kraken's Brew. So it was called Kraken's Brew. We get like a couple packs of Kool-Aid, 5-pound bag of sugar, some water, everything overproof, everything, and we just sit it up there and they drink it and they lose their mind.
They'll lose their mind, all right,
And they would
they're
dance,
sugared up.
and they dance all night, and they didn't come dressed up. Huh? What's that?
I think that's a form of drug. No, I'm
Yeah,
joking
yeah.
with y'all.
I'm a raw vegan. I know all of it is drug. Most of what we eat is drug. So, but people came to dance, and they danced hard the whole time. And we had thumping sound. We had like a city club on Long Island. And that's how I got into promotion, but I just promoted to get people to come to my club. And we had John Johnson, Eyewitness News, try to close us, the fire department. I stayed open to 84. I should have closed in 83, but I was just so rebellious. I was like, they ain't gonna close me. So I stayed there. But for a lot of people in Long Island, that was their first experience with an actual club. So we had nice clubs on Long Island, had the Native New Yorker and Danzy, but they weren't clubs. Like everything was painted black. We had light shows, the music was thumping. So it was a different music experience. So you could hear what you heard at the black clubs, but you could also hear what you heard at the discos, and also you could hear what you heard at the underground clubs, but all together. And back then DJs did that. They knew how to mix and manage all of that. And that was before, like I never heard of Tommy Allen because I left in 85. And I moved to, I had a full-time job. It was called crack. So that's a full-time thing. And I left, I got clean in 89, and I was a single dad. So I wasn't really thinking about DJing. I just like being a dad. And then I came back in 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good timing. But like Mr. Dow said, we got the lounge going on now. So let me tell you how we started off, right? We started off with a little two-step, then we get a little crazy. Then we ended with the reggae, the dirty wine, and then we it's time to go home. It's the baby making music, the R&B. That's how we end ours nowadays.
Yeah.
The baby making music. but before we get off the disco real quick, tell me about the powder. When I was doing my research, I heard about powder on the floor. Anybody know about that?
Yeah, that's for the dancers. That's so you get some movement, baby powder. Matter of fact, on the little flyers used to make the hand flyer, you put the picture of the baby powder. So that meant, you had the baby powder, you had the Chinese shoes, parachute pants, all of that. So that meant those events were for dancing.
Okay.
A lot of them
All
didn't
right.
even have bars,
All right.
but they had all kind of other stuff. But,
So the break
yeah.
dancers have the pledge, and then you had the baby powder.
Yeah, and
All right.
that was for dancers. So in those kind of clubs like that and Loft and all of that, people doing flips, handstands. The hip hop people would even come to break dancers because that was for the dancers. And also what was good about that, because I was a shy guy, you don't have to ask nobody to dance. You just dance, and there was no dance that was out. So even like a clumsy guy like me, it was okay. I could just dance
Something
and
like
do
the Soul Train line?
No.
All right,
That's like,
sorry.
that Soul Train line
All
is
right.
like doing the line dance at the house
I'm showing
music
my age,
festival.
thanks.
That's just no. It's just people. That was their outlet. They were dancing and so that was a different scene. And I DJ'd on Long Island, so when the clubs closed at 4:00, I would go to the city. Well, first you got to stop at White Castles and gas up.
Oh, we still do that. We still do that one.
And then go to Garage Loft, and a lot of time you stay there till daylight. And sometimes you just go right over the bridge to Junior's, get some cheesecake, sleep at Washington Square Park, and then go back out and
Wait,
party
you
again.
didn't just see sleep in the park. You said sleep in the park, right?
Yeah, because you wouldn't go. I was
Okay.
going back to Long Island. Yeah, you know, you bring your little thing and you get there to the club. You wash off. So that was a different scene, and I guess today they're kind of morphing. You know, with not just radio, but you got like iTunes, Spotify, and more access
Okay.
to music. And I think people are more open. But I will tell you something about your generation. Your generation who had parents that were house heads, they are also house heads.
Okay, all right, I'll
I
take
will
it.
tell
I'll
you
take
that.
it. All right, so let's touch on some of the, about the book, all right? So writing a book is a tremendous task and often intimidating and challenging. So as you figure out what to write in order to convey the most meaningful message and to your audience to engage, like what compelled you, what pushed you to write the Dow Twins legacy?
I tried to write this book 10 years ago. I had the outline that you see in that book, the same outline 10 years ago. And the inspiration was when my brother passed away in 2005. And I kind of promised myself that we have to document our history. And it's very important for people of color to document your history. Because if we don't do it, who will do it? And because I did it, people are so excited. Yes, I'm not doing any more parties. I gave you guys 50 years, but thank you. The environment's not the same as it was when we were coming up. As I said, we never had a problem at any of in 50 years, whether we were dealing with 200 people or 500 people or 2,500 people on the Intrepid with one security person. So it was important right now to write down what we have done so that other generations, if they read it, maybe they'll fall in line down the road and decide to do what we did and get our folks educated, get good jobs, and then party your ass off right after work. You know, and that's how we met and had families. You know, a lot of these people here had families because of us. And we know that because I hear the stories. And it's a wonderful thing. Unfortunately, Norman and I never had any family because we were too busy keeping you guys entertained. But it was a joy and a pleasure to do this. And I wouldn't change it for the world because we made so many people happy.
One thing I gotta say, I wish I went to college with you because I think you would have gave me a lot to talk about on the radio. All right, so listen, your book tells the story along with vividly powerful told testimonies by others describing their amazing experience as partner, friends, or just participant that was associated with your events, right? So it's like you're taking the readers on a venture, on an exceptional. All right, so when I say adventure, I mean like with your after parties and your weekend networking and your social events and your galas and the ski trip. Through all that, people came together. That what made two individuals actually start something and build and even have a conversation about it. So, I mean, how did you do it? Like, what was your motivation? How did you maintain your success?
We enjoyed traveling. After college, I did a lot of traveling with a good friend of mine, Vinnie Scott, and then a lot of traveling with Norman all over the world. I mean, different countries, different continents. And we brought back, and Acapulco was one of our first places we went to all the time. And they had nightclubs down there that all their job was to entertain these tourists. And they came up with such funny, just the best little tricks to get people excited and have fun, like a waistline party, airline party. And we had all these different events, which we brought back to New York. And then we encouraged people to travel, because even at this point in my life, I don't travel anymore. I don't need to. I've been a lot of places. And we liked the sports. We liked all type of sports, football, but we didn't play a lot of them. We played the the boring ones that were bowling, skiing, and tennis. We didn't play football and basketball. We were heavy when we were younger. So it allowed us to showcase those sports to people. And then we liked the individual sports like Formula One racing and stuff like that because we were in the cars. We always had real nice cars. And people said, oh, this guy's rich and everything else. No, I have my only car I bought new was my Volkswagen Fastback in 1971. Every other Mercedes, Lexus, whatever, 3 years old, 30,000 miles. And I like to tell young people the same thing. Don't buy it new. Buy it 3 years old, but buy a good used car. I mean, an expensive car. Don't be buying, you don't have to spend that type of money on a Honda. If you're graduating from a Honda and you're going up, get yourself a nice car, a nice Lexus. That's 3 years old. From the manufacturer, from Lexus, not from anybody that you know. But these are little things that, no, leave the Maybach to those other folks. And it's unbelievable. I've seen so many Maybachs and these expensive cars, and the Lamborghinis and everything else. And I'm like, really? But again, they could have been doing the same thing we were doing. They could be 10 years old. You wouldn't know a Lamborghini or a Mercedes 450 SL back in the days was 3 or 4 years old because they keep their face the same. It's just that it has 30 or 40,000 miles on it. But, you know, as far as keeping people together, it was important for us to give them something different all the time. Not all the time, but give them something to look forward to. I mean, they trusted us. We could take them anywhere that we wanted. We did a lot of events for nonprofits. Dave Winfield Foundation, Jackie Robinson Foundation. We did give-backs because we also did scholarships. And we used to do 6 scholarships a year because we wanted to give back. We were fortunate enough to be doing this for 50 years. We've given scholarships for at least 25 years. So it was very important for the give back. And that's the most important thing you can do when you're successful in what you're doing.
I know you're going to have us wrap it up in a few, just one more. Based on your experience, right, what do you consider to be 2 to 3 most important elements of successful events?
The planning, as K-Mel was talking about, you have to know how many people you can have in the facility. You have to know if the facility is safe for your ladies to come to. You know, the guys can go anywhere, but we know that. But the guys will always follow the ladies, so it's very important to always have a safe environment. Like when I came here for Noel's event last year, I've never heard of Roosevelt Library. And this is a spectacular space. This space is comparable to the Schomburg in New York City, in Harlem. This is like a smaller version of the Schomburg Library. And I think that it was so important that I said, Joy, when my book comes out, I want to be here. And no, I'm very proud of this place.
All right, so one other thing with the book. What do you want your reader to take away from the experience of your book once they read it, if they didn't read it already?
The important thing is how much fun we had, how we educated, and how we worked hard. Because that's why Norman and I were not that interesting. You know, we know how to give events, but that's why we had people talk about their experiences at our events. Because this way, you had a sense of what people enjoyed. I never went to one of my parties. I tried my best to go to one, the Intrepid, in its later years because I was trying to offer it to the United Negro College Fund so that I could experience it myself just by walking on. Because being young, single, and black, I saw the most beautiful women coming onto that Intrepid, and I missed that whole experience.
I could tell you was a ladies' man and a gentleman, though.
Always a gentleman.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing that I ask that you do, make sure you support, make sure you get the book, The Dow Twins Legacy, 50 Years of Disco Reflection. Can we give a round of applause? Mr. Harold Dow, we thank you so, so much for coming down to Roosevelt Public Library. It's honored for you to be here. And once again, our condolences to your better half, And Mr. K. Mal, can we give it up for him, please? Any last words you want to give to the audience? Anything you want them to know?
I'm sorry.
You want to say your last words? No. Anything you want them to know before we go?
Well, actually, I just want to say this moment, I'm very honored, right, to be on this platform right here, sitting next to these two gentlemen, icons, right? They were my blueprint. I got to be honest with you. If it wasn't for a Dow Twin promoter and many other promoters, I wouldn't have been able to do what I do. I just want to tell you that. Thank you.
All right. And we have Mark Blake, the Snake.
Well, first, I'm honored. Thank you, Joy, to be a part of this. Yeah, Gregory Hines, Scottie Pippins, and then I checked my bank account and I said, no, I'm not them. But I'm honored to be here and be a part of this, and also get an understanding of the other part and the like the Justine and Leviticus, and I would go occasionally, but I was always DJing on Long Island. And then and so I'd hear about it and a legacy. Oh, before I forget, your cousin Kevin said to give you his number. He hasn't seen you in 10 years, but do that. So I am honored, and also I'm really proud as well to see this long history of groundwork that you'll put in of events with integrity. Yeah, and some I just I promote out of need. DJ is what I do, but I think the best promoters are promoters that want to share. And promoters that want the event to validate with them are not usually honorable. So if you have a gift and or you're feeling the need and you want to share that, people feel that, and they come to that.
Okay, now, we definitely appreciate you being here. And one thing I want to give it up to Joy, Roosevelt Public Library. She's putting everything together. Joy, we love you. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say, Joy?
I'm just looking at everybody in here, and y'all are all like ingredients to me.
Yeah.
So anything I say I'm not going to cook at the moment, I'm going to use you later. And that's not just for those here on the platform. I can't thank you all enough, but everybody here in the audience. I have a very special relationship with most of you. I'm going to keep that going forward. Mark, I don't think people realize Mark came here last year. I had a little bit of a narrative for everyone else, but when Mark came here last year, we were celebrating our Kenneth Jenkins collection that's here in the library. We got this collection. He was the first chair of the Africana Studies Department at Nassau Community College. So we did what was called the Film Connection, because Professor Kenneth Jenkins loved film. And so that weekend, we got Mark to come in and talk about House on Long Island. So we thank you again, Mark, for coming here. And I know a lot of house heads are here because Mark is here. So K-Mel, thank you for years, been going and following, a lot of experiences that he puts all over the city. Even when I said, y'all still doing parties? So I dig, when y'all gonna stop? And then I go there's more people that year than it was years prior. So that's a K-Mel experience. Harold Dow. Harold came in here.
Love you.
Oh, love you back. When Harold came to talk with Noel Henkin, he was like a little kid in the audience, which was funny to watch them all at different generations of doing this. And then it made me realize that having the conversation to really not just collect our stories, but to tell our stories and to see how we still impact with generations that aren't born yet. So that's the work, So thankfully, when we bring you all in here, I like to have y'all party, but every now and then I like for y'all to check out a book or two. Part of the work, right?
I'll be signing books in the back.
Yes, and Howard has his books there in the atrium. We have a board of trustees that are quite impressive. And thankfully, because of them, we're able to do this work. And we're able to bring you all together in the way that we do. So I do want to recognize some of the trustees that are here today. I know Lorette Gregory. Are you here, Lorette? Can you wave or stand up and wave? Yeah, so I get supported. And all the other trustees who haven't come yet, they'll be here because it's a long night. Y'all know it's a long night, right? So with that said, also additionally, we like to support other businesses. We don't always know, not just businesses, we have those food trucks that are out there. They've been doing amazing work in our communities for years. So hopefully, while you're here, at some point, you can definitely go out, bring your food, bring it back. And yeah. Oh yeah, and some sea moss, because vegan days are replacing the Kool-Aid and sugar. And so please see Mark for that.
Right. Before you close, because you're in that process there, I want to introduce to you guys, if you are interested in experiencing a K-Mel Checkmate Entertainment event, I have one coming up January 4th in Queens at Roxdale Village Ballroom. So I'll have a flyer circulating, and if you guys want to come, you're welcome.
A round of
January
applause for
4th.
all of you.
I would love
And
to have
Gina
you there.
Marcus, she is the killer. She is the killer. She's the one that glues it all together. Hey, Mark, can
All right,
you
wonderful.
play some music for us while the band
you in
is
there.
preparing? Could you play a little music for us while we get the next band? Yeah, I don't know. Is Mark ready to go? Or is he good? So, okay, a little housekeeping, a little bit of housekeeping. Again, thank you guys. I want to thank them again for coming. So the way the rest of the evening might be looking is, you know, behind this curtain. Do you take what's behind curtain number door 1? Or curtain 2? No, I'm kidding. All that to say, we have an amazing evening ahead. And you guys are watching what feels like an unplugged experience. Because anytime we have something here, it's not always formula. And that's why it's so exciting. So with that said, we have Debbie Napa and the Napa Time Band. But we also have some incredible featured singers that are also a part of this band tonight. Devin